Welcome inside episode 516 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains, and we are now 5 days away from the NHL Trade Deadline, and it's an Ottawa Senators game day continuing their 5-game homestand against the Columbus Blue Jackets.
And Ross, D.J Smith had a lot to say in his press conferences, including a veteran that may be a game-time decision to return to the lineup. And he also shed some light on some players that are not as close to returning to this team.
No spoilers, but as a goalie-friendly show, you might know who we're talking about, and the organizational depth in that position continued to take a hit last night as two PTO goalies were dressed for the Belleville Sens. We'll tell you about their overtime loss and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Wednesday, March 16th. And Pilsy, the Sens are running out of time to re-sign Nick Paul.
They are running out of time on that, Ross, and a whole lot of other things. It seems like nothing has been done here. I mean, is Joe Sakic the only one with a working phone with the NHL general managers here? Because the Avalanche are pulling off trades left, right, and center, but the seller's market, it seems, is a tough market these days.
It's a wild situation right now. Credit to Joe Sakic, and just for completeness sake, the most recent trade, Tyson Jost being moved to Minnesota in exchange for Nico Sturm. And with Jost having another year left at $2 million on his contract, could that mean even more likelihood of Kevin Fiala being moved in the offseason? That's a story for months down the road because he's not getting moved with Minnesota in a playoff run right now. But the dominoes are starting to fall. And as you alluded to, Joe Sakic and the Avalanche have been involved in the first two moves. Well, we'll call them mid-majors. Okay, maybe not I almost said major trades, but I don't know if Sturm for Jost can be considered just that. Although Jost, a good North Dakota alumni. I got the sweater on here. Nodak getting ready to go in to the second round of the NCHC playoffs. They'll have to do that without Tyler Kleven. We'll wrap up today's show with a prospect update. We've got Belleville to recap. We've got a Senators game day. But Pilsy, I'm so intrigued with this trade deadline for Ottawa. I was doing some number crunching yesterday. And between the draft and the week before the trade deadline last season, Pierre Dorion made 11 trades. This year, he's made 4. And one of them was in exchange for a 7th-round pick to get Dylan Gambrell. Another one was offloading Logan Brown. Like, he had to make those trades. I guess you could say the same about last year, having to move Christian Wolanin. That was one of the trades, and so on and so forth. But are you surprised with how quiet Dorion has been throughout this season?
Yeah, I am pretty surprised. And Dorion, I'm sure if you looked at the stats, he's one of the GMs in his tenure from when he started that's made the most amount of deals. Like he has made a lot of trades since he's been here. Some good, some bad, some awful, some amazing trades, if we're being completely honest here. But this is a team that needs a shakeup. And you can point to the injury concerns all you want, and they are valid. The Sens have had major injury concerns this year, and we haven't seen them have a full roster at any given point in time this season. So that's definitely fair when you're looking at evaluating this team and trying to get a handle on where you think they are and what you think they need to achieve, taking that next step from rebuilding to possible playoff contention. But it's very clear to Sens fans the amount of moves that needs to be done this deadline of guys that just are not a part of this team's long-term future. And we haven't seen any of those moves happen yet.
The only counter argument to that is if you move these pending UFAs, who replaces them down the stretch without affecting Belleville, who I saw some sort of advanced projection that they have an 85% chance of making the playoffs. So without changing the chemistry that you have down there, like, I don't want to see Igor or Roby. I want those guys to get the experience that the guys who came before them haven't gotten. As Belleville still hasn't made the playoffs, they're in their 5th season right now. So when you put that all in perspective, I honestly don't mind keeping a few of these guys. Now, Sanford has to go because these are replacement players. So you shouldn't be paying them $2 million, especially we know what the financial situation is for Ottawa. Rather save that money and put it towards Josh Norris's extension for whatever that's going to be worth. But another guy is Nikita Zaitsev, who we've been really hard on, and rightfully so. He's been absolutely horrific this season, and I think that's not even telling the full story. But again, is it worthwhile making that change right now, or is that something that you attack in the summer?
Yeah, and I agree with you, Ross. We've made it very clear the importance and the emphasis on let's have those prospects stay in Belleville, play in meaningful games, develop and build chemistry together, and make a run at the Calder Cup. That's of utmost importance, I would say. But having said that, yeah, guys like Sanford, he needs to be moved. Even if you don't get an incredible return, you need to do something with that asset because essentially that's Logan Brown, which you put a lot of draft capital in.
Did you see the stat the other day? Dylan Gambrell was drafted the same year as Logan Brown. That blew my mind.
Wow, that's crazy to think of because Gambrell already has over 100 games, and that's with COVID seasons getting in the way too. So there's guys that I would keep just because if you trade them, you're not going to get much back. And Dylan Gambrell is one of those guys. And I've made my case on Dylan Gambrell. I think they should keep him even further than this season. Adam Gaudette, another case. You picked him up for waivers. You're not going to get much, if anything, if you try to trade him. Just keep him on your roster. Tyler Ennis, you signed him to a PTO. He's making such a minimal contract. He's a veteran guy that can help this team get through the grind of the rest of the season. I would keep him as well. Zach Sanford, he needs to be moved. Nick Paul, it seems all but certain that he's not going to re-sign here, so he also needs to be moved. Anton Forsberg, that's a guy that we know at this point the Senators cannot afford to trade, so he needs to stay. Josh Brown, that's someone that you could move out if any team was interested, but if not, that's fine. And then Victor Mete, his agent, is working away more than Dorion is to try to get him traded. So he's a guy that can be moved. And you can bring up Dylan Hetherington to basically be your seventh defenseman in that slot, right? So I think just to wrap that up more organized here, Sanford, Paul, Mete, those are guys that need to be moved. And then maybe you move one other guy if you get a good package, but the other guys you can keep and just ride out to the end of the season.
So you have Sanford, Paul, and Mete as guys that have to move. I'd agree with that, unless if there's a last-minute renegotiation between Nick Paul, but it doesn't seem likely. No. As Frank Saravalli put out his latest trade list, I don't think he's allowed to call it the trade bait board that he used to run at TSN now that he's with Daily Faceoff. Top 50 trade targets, he's calling it here. The nice little emoji to boot. But he has Nick Paul as number 8 on his top 50. So that's up from 11th the last time he put out this list. And the scoop, and take it with a grain of salt because it's in the scoop for Anton Forsberg. I'll wait and I'll get to that in a second because that'll roll into our next conversation well. But he says that things have gone quiet between Sens and Nick Paul's camp. The last offer was not very well received at 3 years, $6 million. See, I don't quite agree with that. And if Nick Paul wants to bet on himself, by all means, go for it. Get your paper, all that. I don't know if he's worth that much more, taking aside, of course, the community involvement. Everyone knows what kind of locker room guy he is. I'm not saying he's not important, but I've also said this in the past. The grass isn't always greener. And he's got a leadership role where he's averaging, 16, 17 minutes of ice time? Yeah. I just don't know if there's a lot of situations where he's going to go in and get that same opportunity. So I can see how, as the organization who had him on a 2-way contract up until last year, I can see why they're like, hey, we're almost doubling your salary. Like, how much do you think you've earned going from a 2-way to 1-way, 1.35, and now 2's like not even a conversation? I think if he wants to be here, that should at least get the conversation started, not end communications. And of course, we're only getting little bits and pieces though, right? So it's hard to piece it together.
Yeah, and I've never been involved in negotiations like this, so this is just speculation. But if you're the Senators, you're going to start low, right? Like the Sens are going to start low. Nick Paul's going to start high, and you probably meet somewhere in the middle, right? Like, so the Senators, just based on what you said there, they're like, we're giving you a big increase in salary. We see you as a bottom six guy. We see you as a big part of this team. We're going to start at $2 million. I bet Nick Paul's probably closer to $3 million. I think somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million would make sense for both sides at a 3-year deal.
It just makes sense for this to be easy to get done. I don't know why I'm saying that as an outsider who, again, not a negotiator, but how can you not be able to get this done? If you want to make it happen, both sides, I think, should be able to figure it out. And don't give me they need to save money for other guys, because let's look at this just financially. Matt Murray has been on injured reserve, give or take, half the time he's been in Ottawa? And albeit it's a backloaded contract, but when he's on injured reserve, insurance pays most of that money. So, and Drake Batherson, and albeit, again, he's making like $2 million this year. It's a crazy backloaded contract from that standpoint, but they've had high. So it's almost like a catch-22 where it's like, oh, we suck because our players are injured, but then we're poor because we're paying these players too much. But those injured players are being paid by insurance. So it's just kind of all over the place right now. We'll see what happens. I don't disagree with the people in the comments, though, who say, hang tight right now. What the hell is it going to change going into the last 25 games? See what happens when you add Sanderson to the mix.
Yep.
But that doesn't disqualify how ridiculous it is that I have to see Nikita Zaitsev on the top pair of my favorite NHL hockey team for 153 goddamn games. It's just not an excuse. If you want to have him on the third pair, go right ahead. But to see him anchor Thomas Chabot, I've just had enough of it, and he's back there today. We'll get into that preview a little bit. I want to get in quickly to Anton Forsberg, and I mentioned kind of the scoop part of Frank Saravalli's article. And to be fair, he's got 32 teams to worry about. He can't be locked into the day-to-day to each one. But he mentions that when it comes to Anton Forsberg, who's ranked 28th out of 50 on this list, he says that Murray's reemergence since returning from Belleville should provide enough confidence that Murray and Gustafsson can get the job done next year. I don't know what job that is, except for going for Bedard or Michkov in the 2023 NHL draft. Anton Forsberg's clearly been their best goalie this season, but he also moved him down from 22nd to 28th. So maybe he is sensing that the market, maybe not the market's cooling down, but that Ottawa's realizing, holy crap, we don't even have that many goalies in the organization when you're having Logan Fladell start an AHL game.
And a Guelph Griffin's PTO player backing him up.
I'm glad you didn't even try for the name. Sorry, no disrespect, goalie-friendly show, but a Guelph Griffins goalie is very suffice to say for that. But when it comes to Anton Forsberg, it also has to do with Matt Murray, and we'll touch on what D.J Smith had to say about the two-time Cup champ Matt Murray in his game. Before we get to that, previewing tonight's game and a quick recap of the Belleville Senators. Pilsy, I believe you have a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
I do indeed. It's Built Bar. If you guys are longtime listeners, you know all about Built Bar. But if you're a new listener, let me introduce you to the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. It's March. If you're still working on your New Year's resolution, well, maybe you've given up. Maybe you're still going after it. But the way to stick to it is having healthy, nutritious, tasty protein bars, and Built Bar can provide that for you. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, even the Built Puffs, 100% real chocolate. You gotta love it. They're low calorie and high protein. Get those candy bars out of your shelf. Don't have them in your car. Don't pack them to work. Replace them with Built Bars. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away by the stats. Like I mentioned, high protein, but low calorie. High fiber, but low carbs. Built Bars, they focus on making the bars tasty and then find out how to make it healthy. So you're never going to regret biting into a soft, chewy, chocolatey Built Bar. Offer is go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. We're hooking you guys up. Use our promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Guys, it's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar.
All right, Pillsy. So just a final thought on trade deadline. And if I'm calling Joe Sakic because he's the only guy who wants to pick up the phone and chat, you know what I would get crazy and offer them? Here's a wild trade. And shout out Ian Mendez for doing his classic and allowing fans to put in their trade proposals. Still too many Brandstrom trades because the value is just not where you need it to be to trade them.
Nope.
If they could somehow get Alex Newhook out of Colorado,
good old Newfie Bay,
I would be offering so much. How about Connor Brown and Nick Paul for Alex Newhook? Is that crazy?
I don't know if Colorado does that just because they're not going to have the cap space to squeeze those guys in. Like they would
get 2 runs. They would get Connor Brown for this year and next at a very reasonable cap hit. And then Nick Paul, yeah, you might have to let him go, but you still get Connor Brown for next year and Nick Paul for this run.
And the Avalanche are more all in than I think we've seen any other team in quite some time. Like they are really pushing the chips in here.
For Newhook, I would add in Forsberg and just give us your least depth. Give us a goalie. We need a goalie. Or Pillsy and I can sign PTOs. We're down.
Yeah.
But that's the type of player that if I'm the Ottawa Senators, I would go above and beyond to add to the roster. The only problem
is Newhook a winger?
No, center. Centerman with 23 points this season in 51 games as a 21-year-old rookie. And, man, he's a player.
See, I like Newhook a lot, but I think you got to focus on the wing here. Like if you're getting a forward and you're putting a lot of trade value assets into it, and now, Ross, you've just thinned out the right wing even more. So,
well, he's a left shot, but I mean, he could probably play the wing too. It wouldn't be as hard for a centerman to move to the wing versus otherwise. And he's having the problem that most young centers have, where he's 33% in the faceoff circle.
Yeah, so I love the idea, but I think the focus, especially if you're trading Connor Brown, has to be to upgrade your right wing position. And yeah, he can play right wing, but it's not exactly ideal to focus on a guy to acquire him and then move him positionally right away.
Yeah, I just got excited. You know, you see Colorado, you start looking, okay, so you're clearly a team that has the pieces and everything and the prospects to get something done. So I'm just kind of piecing together. But again, I would be super happy to re-sign Connor Brown this summer for 2 or 3 extra years at 5.5. I think he's that good of a player. Been on pace for like 60 points over the last 2 seasons. So, hey.
And he's a big part of the culture here, too. Let's not forget 100%.
That. And yeah, you'd be moving 2 assistant captains or alternate captains. People are giving me crap for that. All right.
You got all 3 A's in there.
Yeah, there you go. It's one of the 3. Pick your poison. Give me the Sparty shuffle with all 3 of those underneath. All right, Pillsy, we got to get to what D.J. Smith said about Matt Murray. Sounds like it could be a season-ending injury, and I'm not here to discuss how often he's injured, but that play that he was injured certainly didn't look like something that would keep you out for 3 months. Do you think there could be more to this story?
I do think there could be more to this story, absolutely. And I think Wayne Scanlon tweeted it out today, and I don't have the tweet in front of me, but basically it was alluding to the fact that maybe this is more not just about the health of Murray, but about the relationship between Murray and this team. You got the tweet, Ross?
Yeah, of course. At Hockey Scanner, a friend of the show, absolute beauty. DJ Smith's comments that Matt Murray may not be back this season sounded matter of fact, but had an ominous ring to it. How much of the uncertainty is related to physical injury? And at what point is the diagnosis a fractured relationship between a player and the organization? Nice pun there with fracture.
Yeah, well worded.
As a guy is legendary writer, of course, he's going to be able to pull that out of the air. But I agree with him. And we had that comment last week on YouTube, and people were giving us the gears. But if you're Matt Murray, you can't be happy with how it went. The scrutiny that he's being seen with, and the microscope that he's been under. But if you're the organization, he's not making you look very good either. So it's kind of who is to blame in this one, because he had to have value, right? The two-time Cup champ kind of it carries a lot of weight. It's crazy too. This guy was nominated for NHL Rookie of the Year And when he showed up to the awards, he already had 2 Stanley Cup rings as a starter. So
insane.
That's wild in itself.
He took Ottawa's Stanley Cup ring away from them single-handedly in 2017.
They still dominate Nashville in that final.
Oh, yeah.
It's not even close. Thanks for bringing that one up.
Sorry. But yeah, I want to get into that because I think that's a good point. When you're looking at a number one goalie that you've put a lot of your chips into, and the way it's gone, like, who would have thought when the Sens acquired Matt Murray that he would even sniff Belleville, right? Like, that's not something that when you trade a second-round pick and extend him to big money, one of the biggest goalie contracts in the league, nonetheless, and you don't think he's going to be a guy that's spending time in the minors or only has a handful of wins in a season. Like, it hasn't gone well, and the Senators are kind of handcuffed with their goalie situation because if Matt Murray was consistently healthy and was playing even not up to his contract, but at an average starting goaltender stats, then right away you can be like, hell yeah, we can trade Forsberg. We can afford to let him go and acquire some assets for a guy we picked up on waivers. That's great asset management, but they're not in that situation. And to go back on what Frank Saravalli said, I don't think there's a single fan out there now that would be comfortable with Murray and Gustafsson as the 1-2 punch next year. Like, that would be absolutely terrifying, especially if this team is legit about trying to make the playoffs next year. There's no way that goalie tandem could get it done. No way.
There's no way.
No way.
No. That's absolutely wild if Pierre Dorion thinks that. I don't even know what to think of Gustafsson because we
haven't had a chance to evaluate him, right?
I know.
That's just the thing.
I know. It's brutal. And if he doesn't develop, I won't go so far as to say the organization ruined his development, because if you look at the numbers before all this, he had a very good start to his NHL career.
Amazing start.
We saw him in Belleville give up 2 goals in the first 5 minutes of how many games?
A lot of them.
A lot of games. Team Dax always will be, always have been. But I understand the fact that Dax gets hurt, doesn't get to play that rest of the season, and Gus comes in and plays great.
Well,
and not only that,
you look
draft
at the
pedigree, what they gave up for him, that's fair in itself. And with Dax, it's kind of foul money with the 7th round pick.
Yeah, we love Dax obviously on the show, but to lose a 7th round goalie prospect in the expansion draft, that's, if you're looking at asset management in terms of franchise, that's not bad at all. So they had to push their chips with Gustafsson, especially after that stretch they had, but they haven't put him in a spot to succeed here. And it's not due to their own fault. Like, Matt Murray's health has really anchored him. Unfortunately, Mando also has been injured, so there hasn't been that assurance down in Belleville. And
Sogard's sick too, so you're getting real thin.
Yeah, so I would honestly, at this point, there's a 0% chance that Forsberg gets traded. Like, I would take him off any trade bait, trade target, whatever you want to call it. He's off the list because the Sens have no choice but to keep him around. And his numbers, considering the team he's on, pretty damning impressive.
John Rodenberg from TSN Mornings, JR, as he's more affectionately known by, put out a poll. And I want to ask you the same question. Has Matt Murray played his last game as an Ottawa Senator?
I don't think so, just because there's so many buyout candidates this summer. It'll be interesting to see what direction they go. I'm not really convinced one way or another which buyout candidate they're going to do. Can they do 2 buyouts, or are they limited since they already have 2 buyouts on the books?
Yeah, but I think one's coming off because Dion Phaneuf, I believe, is.
But that wasn't a buyout. That was a retained salary.
Was it? No, yeah. I think it was because he retired with. Let me see here. Buyout. Buyout history. No, it's Dion, and it's this year and next, because when he was bought out in LA, so they must have kept some of the salary. But
they retained the salary, and then the retirement makes it a buyout. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
it's wild. Whatever it is, it's only $350K.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's still something. They owe Bobby Ryan 3.5 this year, 1.8 next year, 1.8 the year.
And then that's it.
Afterwards. It almost would have just made sense to friggin' keep him.
That's that's the side of the argument we were on, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah, story for another day. But Pillsy, like Matt Murray, this guy's on a backloaded contract. He's making $7 million in salary next year and $8 million 2 years from now. You kind of have to buy him out, I think, unless you think that maybe he might end up on long-term injured reserve, and then you only have to pay whatever insurance doesn't cover.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So I don't know where their head is at, but if you do buy out Matt Murray, then are you comfortable saying Forsberg and Gustafsson can be the tandem that takes you to the playoffs? I'm not sure I'm at that level yet, and I'm not sure I have the confidence in the pro scouting that they can find another goalie to play with Forsberg that can lead them to the playoffs.
Oh, yikes. What a tumultuous situation the Sens find themselves in, but no shortage of content when it comes to the Ottawa Senators. They always keep it interesting, and if they don't make the playoffs next year, or at least compete for one, it's all for nothing. It really is. The whole rebuild, unless that's it for this regime. I still love the prospects and players they've accumulated. That much is true. But until you substantiate that with real NHL veterans who can contribute now and in the future and good goaltending, you just aren't going to win. In their last 3 games, the goaltending is what? Sub 700? It's like 725, or sub 800. It's like 725,
really bad.
730. You're not going to win any games in that stretch. Now, if you're also looking at the Senators' most recent games, even the win, they allowed 3 goals, and that still in itself, it was 3 goals in the third period. So you're looking good up until then. But yeah, sorry. So it's not quite in the last 3 games. The last 2 games, 6 on 28 and then 5 on 15, albeit the empty netter in the end there. But 4 on 14 doesn't sound that much better, actually, when I come to think of it. But it is an Ottawa Senators game day. They get an opportunity to go up against the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team where they only allowed 1 goal the last time they played them. A great 2-1 win. Merzlikins will start in goal again for Columbus tonight, and the Ottawa Senators an opportunity on home ice to send the fans home happy. So let's preview tonight's game. We'll also touch on the Belleville Senators overtime loss last night and a quick prospect roundup. All right, Pilsy. So let's dive into the Belleville Sens first, because I was shocked. Because Matt Sogard, he plays those 2 games back-to-back on Friday and Saturday, but then he's off for 2 days. He comes back, has a virus, not COVID-related, but he's out last night. So Logan Fladell gets the start. And considering they're going up against the number 1 team in the division, I think you got to be happy with getting a point.
Big stick taps to him. Yeah, that's a massive moment to come in to play your first AHL game. First AHL start. Yeah, sorry. And 33 saves on 36 shots up against the top team, and it went all the way to overtime in this one. So I think definitely he deserves a lot of credit. And the Senators, that's a big point to get. Like, sure, Utica is miles ahead of them in the playoff race, but to keep a point to help your points percentage is huge up in this race, because it is a tight division right now.
Yeah, it certainly is. You can look at this 2 ways. One, and I'm with you, it's great to get a point, but they were also leading 2-0. Is that a bit of bring you back down to reality situation here, where they get the 2-0 lead, Logan Shaw, 7th of the year, but then 5 minutes later, it's tied up, then Utica gets on the board, and then midway through the third period, Utica takes the lead, and Utica outshot Belleville 10-2 in the third period. So it was really a hang on by a seat of your pants to even get the 1 point.
Yeah, exactly. But then also you look, no Lassie Thompson, so that's gonna hurt as well. So you're bound to, after 40 minutes of play, things are gonna start falling apart on you when you're this short-manned as they were in 2 crucial positions. So I think overall this was a good game, and you got to be happy with the result.
They are off until, I believe, Friday is the next game for them. Yep, Friday they host the Hershey Bears. So let's hope you get a lot of liquid into Matt Sogard so you can be ready to go, because points, they're going to be important here coming down the stretch as we take a quick look here at the standings. Also, we should mention the goal scorers for Belleville. Said Logan Shaw is 7th, and Maxence Gannett had his 4th of the season. He was a guy who defensively left a little bit to be desired in those games in Manitoba, but for a 7th round pick to already be contributing in his rookie season in the AHL, I think it's pretty impressive. A little insider info. The coach loves him down there in Belleville too. So a long-term project, but as a 2019 pick, 7th round, as I mentioned, it is impressive for him. Already 4 goals, 15 points in 37 games at the American Hockey League level. That goal was assisted by Scott Sabrin, who wore an A for the Belleville last night. Dylan Hetherington had the other letter. Okay, that I think pretty much sets the table there for Belleville. Standings-wise, this is how close things are. And it's the 3 Canadian teams who all have a few less games, Pills? But they're all right there. Do you have the standings in front of you?
Yeah, I got them right here. So the Marlies are second with 56 points and a .560 win percentage. Laval, 55 points, .550. And then Belleville, 56 points, so more points, but slightly lower win percentage at .549. So just one decimal off there. So it's so tight right now, and every single win matters, especially up against the divisional team. So we'll see how they do in their upcoming games, because every game is crucial.
And especially when you look below you in the standings, and this is rare, you look below you in the standings and the team's 6 points ahead. So they played 6 more games, but it just adds a little fire to your behind, knowing that if you fall, you're going to get burned because they're already accumulated more points. You just have more opportunity to get more going down the stretch. Belleville with 21 games remaining in their season. So not every team will play the equal amount of games, which is why they're going off percentage. So even though they only have 21 more games, 6 less than Rochester, they only have 2 extra games as well. So it'll be a very interesting finish. And we know that there is a deadline at the trade deadline for the NHL where a player has to be on an AHL roster to go in for the playoffs. But I think that there is a clause that
you can do like paper transactions too, right? Where it's not like officially he's down there.
Right. But when it comes to guys like Jake Sanderson is where my brain's going, where Zach Werenski did the same thing. And I always bring him up as a guy who really vaulted into his NHL career with his run to the Calder Cup with the Monsters. So I think if you're unsigned, maybe what happens is when they sign him, they assign him to Belleville right away and then use him, because you only get a certain amount of call-ups after 4 after the deadline. So then you can use him as that 1, but maybe as long as he initially reports to Belleville, just fly him to Toronto, make him drive the 401. He can stop off at the Knifton exit there and then get right back on his horse, because they're going to need him in Ottawa. I have a feeling he's going to average 20 minutes a night down the end of the season. Did you see the highlight of him on Saturday diving across his crease to save a goal?
You love to see that. I mean, that's he's just putting his body right on the line there. And that's, you know what I love most about that, Ross, is that's instincts. Like he didn't have time to make that decision. That's just the kind of person and player he is, that right away he's like, I got to get there. I got to lie down across the crease right now.
Next year we're going to the Ralph, right? Even though he's gone, because you need to get a Jake Sanderson North Dakota jersey.
Well, and Tyler Clevin might not be at the Ralph either.
He better be. Okay, we can briefly bring that up because Pierre Dorion and Pierre Maguire went down to North Dakota, had dinners. It had to be at B-Dubs. Had to be, because I'm pretty sure that's the only place you can eat there, and a couple fast food joints in Grand Forks. No disrespect. Love our Nodak Sens. But Tyler Clevin needs to go back for 1 more year. He needs to.
I agree.
He's been such a revelation. Now, the only argument that I can see for the other is the plays that, for example, he got kicked out of the game with a minute left in the last one. That's a 2-minute penalty in the AHL. But don't you think it's almost better for him to be playing under more strict rules? Because we know he's not going to lose that edge, because he's still dummying guys with knowing that there's rules against it at that level. I still think it's so much more important for him to have the puck on his stick as an important player and maybe develop a little bit more offense. Because how many people, Jake Sanderson told us this, Alex Heiner told us this, Jake Brandt told us this, that there is offense within Tyler Clevin's game. And I feel like if you rush him to the AHL, you might be limiting what his offensive upside could potentially be at the NHL level.
Yeah, and I agree with all that, Ross. But for me, the most important thing is, why rush him? Because let's say he does go pro. He's not the kind of guy that's going to step into the NHL, right? So we're assuming he's going to go to Belleville. Lassie Thompson's probably still going to be there. JBD probably still going to be there. So there's guys that are going to be getting those opportunities. Tyler Cleven's probably going to be a third pair defenseman in Belleville. I don't really see the point of that. Like, why not have him continue to dominate in a program where Brad Barry is known for pumping out great defenseman prospects? Why not continue to grow under Barry, stay at the Ralph, try to win some more games, playing meaningful games, rather than just be a third pair defenseman in Belleville a year early? That's my kind of opinion on it. Is he won't benefit from rushing to Belleville that 1 year early, because if he does stay another year in college, then I'm confident Lassie and or JBD both may be up in the NHL at that point, at least one of them, right? So then that opens a spot for him to be a top 4 defenseman in Belleville.
The only thing, if you're the organization, you see that the left side is pretty weak in terms of depth. So like they have a guy on a one-way AHL or two-way AHL, ECHL deal, and Xavier Bernard playing almost every night for Belleville. So especially if you're moving out Mete and what's going to happen on the back end, like you might want a little extra left hand.
But those guys are easy to find, right? Like you can find a fringe AHL, NHL guy to take over third pair minutes in Belleville.
Yeah, 100%. So I hope Tyler Cleven's back, but either way, we have to experience the Ralph Pills.
Yeah, I want to check it out either way. Yeah, and let's not kid ourselves. The Sens are probably going to draft a no-dac Senator within the near future here.
Yeah, I hope so.
One. Yeah,
I hope so, because they don't rebuild, they reload, and they're going to the second round. So we'll be following along with that. All right, Senators game day hosting the Columbus Blue Jackets, one of the teams who D.J Smith said they should have a standings within the standings, he says, with all the teams who are out of the playoffs, but still battling for position. Now, maybe it's a little rude to say Columbus is out of the playoffs. They're the first team among teams who will not qualify, but they're also 13 points back of Washington. Yeah. So the A teams, they're set in the Eastern Conference. Yeah. They've won 2 in a row, but they've only got 4 wins in their last 10. They're coming off a big victory where good timing for Cole Sillinger love, a guy who scored more goals in his last game than he'd scored in his 25 previous games combined. But that's still a big play for him as we pull up the Columbus Blue Jackets lines. Pillsy, you want to run through these, and then I'll give you my lookout player?
All right, so top line, we got Gustav Nyquist with Jack Roslovic and Patrick Laine. That's a decent top line that can definitely put the puck in the net. Then you got Max Domi with Sillinger in the center with Bjorkstrand. Jacob Voracek, Ross. This guy's crazy. 3 goals and 40 assists. It's insane to have such a difference there. He's playing with Sean F. and Corrali. Sens fans know him well from the Boston Bruins series. Then you got Chinnikov on their right wing there. And rounding out the fourth line, Robinson, Danforth, and Benstrom. And here's where this team really falls off, in my opinion, Ross. Their decor has a lot of growing to do. You got Werenski with Peak. I think that's how it's pronounced there. Then Gavrikov and Jake Bean. Then you got Carlson and Kukan. And then Elvis Merzlikins is the official starting goaltender. So that is how the Columbus Blue Jackets line up tonight.
Oh my God, man. I'm just doing some quick hitting research on Patrick Laine on his game log. In his last 20 games, do you know how many goals and points Patrick Laine has?
He's been on fire. 20 games, I'm going to say 25 points.
28 points, Ooh. And 17 of those are goals.
Yeah, wow.
17 goals in his last 20 games, and he only has 2 in his last 5. So this guy is on an absolute heater, but my lookout player is his left winger, Gustav Nyquist, and mostly because I want to cry about a story I got to see live at the CTC. I'm sure lots of people listening were at that game as well. It was Daniel Alfredsson's, was it Alfie's return? Now I'm questioning myself. Maybe it was a second game that year, but I know it was Detroit-Ottawa. Gustav Nyquist takes the puck in the offensive zone in overtime, and he has it. This is, you see it on the TSN, like top 10s for some things. He held onto the puck for 48 seconds, circling the Sens offensive zone. Jared Cowan ends up switching onto him, and he scores. Game over. Just like that. I need to find the exact game, but you're just watching him, and you're like, all right, are the Sens ever going to touch the puck? The answer was no.
No, yeah.
So
Not
I'm
until they
looking,
scooped it out of the net.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking out for Gustav Nyquist. Do not let him, key to victory, do not let him circle the offensive zone 3 times because he'll probably end up scoring.
Fair. So, yeah, don't let one single player possess the puck for 40 plus seconds during a shift. I like that, Ross. I like that. Don't do that.
I'm a real thinker.
My lookout player is Cole Sillinger, and I think he was my lookout player last time. I know he's gone a long stretch without any goals before this hat trick, but he's a kind of guy that his shot is just so good, and he's playing a second line center role already. He's one of he has to be the guy from last year's draft with the most amount of games played. No, he has to be.
Yeah, I'll look that up in 2 seconds. By the way, Nyquist had the puck for 28 seconds officially. 28 seconds before scoring in that game, and it was in 2014. So it was a Daniel Offerton return game. I don't know if it was the Daniel Offerton return game, but still super impressive play there. And as I kind of talk my way into it, yes, Cole Sillinger has the most games played for any 2021 draft pick. Shocker, though. Do you know who's second?
It's going to be someone random, not even from the first round.
You're correct.
So the answer is no, I don't.
How about if I gave you the hint that he played in Ottawa last game?
No,
yeah, it's a tough one. J.J. Moser from Arizona.
Oh, I never would have got that.
60th overall pick. The only other 2 to play from this year was Mason McTavish and William Eklund, who each played 9 games. So yeah, Cole Sillinger, the only full-time NHLer. Moser's played 33 games, but 57 for Cole Sillinger. Super impressive. He was a guy we were both high on before the draft, and yeah, it's not aging very good.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. Yeah. Hey, Cole Sillinger was my guy all the way through.
So it is aging well for us, not the Sens.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Credit to
us. But I want to make sure I'm keeping an eye on him just because I was really intrigued by him. So he's my lookout player.
And one of those young players who start as a center. You don't often see that. So
especially a second-line center. It's impressive.
So could we see him and Stützle go up head-to-head in this game? That'd be a good face-off battle.
Yep.
All right, we'll be keeping our eye on that. Let's take a look at the Ottawa Senators, who did not have a morning skate today. So we're going off of yesterday's practice lines. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see a little asterisk at 4th line center. That's because there is a potential lineup change that we'll get to in a moment. The Senators line up as they did against Arizona, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Am I right, Pilsy? Although they did outshoot Arizona 43-15. But I don't know. I almost want just change for the sake of change. Like just seeing the same thing. Isn't that the definition of insanity? I don't know. Talk about insane. Let's talk about Josh Norris's shot. He's the number 1 center on this team. Norris between Tkachuk and Connor Brown. Easily the best line in the last game. So completely agree. Keep those guys together. Second line, Tim Stützle between Alex Formenton and Tyler Ennis. The third line, Colin White between Nick Paul and Zach Sanford. And the fourth line is Dylan Gambrell, maybe, between Parker Kelly and Austin Watson. On defense, Shabbat Zaitsev, Holden and Zub, and Brandstrom with Josh Brown. Now, D.J. Smith says Chris Tierney, in all likelihood, will play tonight, which would be the return of a veteran piece. Do you think this would be one final look, Pilsy, to show teams that he's back from his injury and could be worth the mid-round pick for a rental?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to my list from earlier, I would put Chris Tierney on that list of guys that you need to move just to get returning assets. So that's definitely someone that maybe they're showcasing. And something different of the lineup, Anton Forsberg is starting instead of Gustafsson.
Revenge game.
Exactly. We know how he played up against Columbus last time. And Gustafsson, if you're a coach, it's tough to be like, well, we're going to put you back in after that rough game. So that's fair that D.J. Smith wanted to go a different direction.
Back-to-back Friday, Saturday, though. He has to get in one of those. Probably Friday against Philly.
It's tough to say, but yeah, that's where I would put Gustafsson in, yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you're noticing here, or you want to get right to your locked-on player?
The other thing I'm noticing here is a break for Nick Holden. having to play with Nikita Zaitsev. Like, that's how I see this. Is like, all right, Holden, you've done your time. We're going to try to see if Shabbat can figure out Zaitsev here, and you get to play with Artem Zub this game.
Yeah, congratulations to Nick Holden for getting to play with an NHL defenseman for the first time in a long time for him. Now, when it comes to Victor Mete, I think we've probably seen the last of him with the Ottawa Senators. You're not going to have him and Brandstrom. And you know what? I actually kind of agree with DJ to a sense that you're not really having any strong penalty killers with those guys in the lineup. And not to say Zaitsev's a strong penalty killer, but if he does do something adequately, it's probably on the penalty kill because he's not afraid to get in front of shots and eat them. So, you know what? Whatever. It's only going to be a couple more games that we have to see that. Forsberg's got a .916 save percentage, but did make 37 saves against Columbus in the last meeting. He was unbelievable in that game. Really fortunate for fans, too, not allowing us to hear that stupid cannon that they blow up after they score only one goal for Columbus in that game. But my locked on player today is going to be, shocker, Josh Norris. Because I want, every time he steps on the ice, I want to see what he's going to do next. He's now played 101 games and has 41 goals. So I might not sound like Nostradamus when I say that he's going to score on a power play. Maybe I won't go so far. You don't want to guarantee the same thing twice in a row. It's like crying wolf a little bit here because eventually I'll be wrong and everyone will tell me I'm stupid.
It's Josh Norris, so it's not that crazy.
He's just such an unbelievable talent, and the best shoot first centerman in Ontario, active right now. Shout out not getting suspended to Josh Norris.
Yeah, shout out not cross-checking guys in the face.
No, he's just going to point at you.
My understanding is not allowed.
When you get a penalty against him, he'll let you know when you're allowed to come out after he snipes one on the power play.
Well, Nick Ritchie needed someone to tell him. He wasn't going to figure that out on his own.
Last time, we got to pull that up again. Low-key, one of the funniest things you've ever said in yesterday's show. Go back and listen to that. Tweet us at Sens Central when you catch what Pillsy said yesterday about our boy, Nick Ritchie. Before you get your locked on player, I do want to let everyone know that we have another game day giveaway to our fans on Twitter. So go follow us there at Sens Central. Follow me at Ross Levitan, at Brandon Piller 1, at Fighting Stutzla. We can't thank Dylan enough for providing the idea and the card. So today, in honor of the Columbus Blue Jackets coming to town, he thought it would be a good idea to give away a Mark Mathot rookie card.
Yes.
So go check that out. He's wearing number 29.
Confirmed signature too, Ross. If any of you out there are like, that's a fake signature, Mark Mathot literally confirmed that was his signature.
Perfect. So go check it out and make sure that you add a screenshot of a subscription to our YouTube channel. We're on the road to 2,000, and I'm not quitting till we get there and beyond. Well, I want to get to 10K on Twitter. I got a lot of goals here, and I know that Pillsy does too. We're going to have some fun with you down the stretch run and beyond. So make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Senators wherever you get your podcast. You know what? Subscribe where you don't get your podcasts as well.
Sure.
Why not? Support the brand. Steal your friends' phones. Do the same. We appreciate it wholeheartedly. Pillsy, you're locked on player tonight.
My locked on player is going to be Nick Paul. The trade deadline is looming. He's trying to work out a contract. These are crucial games for him to show either the Sens, hey, you might want to think twice about that low ball offer you gave, or to show other teams, hey, you might want to think about upping your trade offer because I can add a lot of value to this team. And he's playing on a line with Colin White and Zach Sanford. You know, maybe not the best spot to succeed, but that's a line that's going to get an easier matchup up against this Columbus team. Their bottom six is not as strong as Ottawa's, I would say for sure, apart from Voracek on that third line. But I think Nick Paul has a lot to prove, and I think he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. You heard D.J Smith say Nick Paul is an emotional guy, and this is a tough situation. I think sometimes people forget how tough it is to be a player on an expiring contract. You played some of your whole life. You're not sure if you're going to stay. You're not sure if you're going to go. If you're going to go, you have no clue. Like, imagine just being told one day, hey, thanks for everything. Pack up your bags. You're going to San Jose or something. Not that I think he's going to get traded there, but you got to ship thousands of kilometers away, and you got to move your family, your dogs, all your stuff. You got to do it quickly. That's a tough thing to handle mentally. So
you're going to Edmonton, Nick Paul.
Yeah, pack a coat. It's tough. So I want to see how he's playing and how this is affecting him, and if he can up his value either way here.
Great locked on player, because I have a follow-up for you as we are going long. Shocker.
Yeah.
Is this Nick Paul's final game as an Ottawa Senator? We know some teams, Ben Sherratt already with Montreal being held out of the lineup for precautionary reasons. We've seen the Sens do that in the past with Matt Duchene, with Mark Stone. Could this be a situation where he sits the games against Philly and Montreal ahead of the trade deadline?
It's quite possible because, there's only tonight's game, Philly and Montreal before the trade deadline. Their next game will be the 22nd in Long Island after. So
in Long Island?
On Long Island?
On Long Island? That's a huge
Long Island?
That's a huge conflict between New Yorkers. Is it in Long Island or are you on Long Island?
Yeah. So that's definitely a possibility. I don't think it happens unless they're very close to a deal. If they got to have basically the right trade partner and maybe just some tweaking to some asset management on one side or another. Otherwise, I think he plays through because, like I said, the Sens need players right now. They need guys.
Yeah.
So
need guys.
Yeah, we'll see.
Give me one key to victory here before we go.
Key to victory is this Columbus Blue Jackets team, Ross, is very run and gun style. If you look at their goals for, sorry, I'm just pulling it up here. If you look at their team goals for, they're actually not in too bad of a spot in the league. Goals for, they are 12th overall in the league. All right.
Well, Line helps.
Yeah, Line definitely helps. Let's flip it around to goals against. Holy, they are third worst in the league. The Montreal Canadiens are the worst in the league, and they only allowed 9 more goals than Columbus.
Wow.
The goaltender stats for this team are worse than the Ottawa Senators, if you can believe it. So if they play a run and gun style game, make sure you're not giving them those momentum goals, because if this is a 6-5 game or something, the momentum goals are going to decide how the momentum shifts, and if teams are getting, like we've seen with Sens games, 3 goals in a row, 4 goals in a row, and all that kind of stuff. So don't let the momentum completely shift to them, especially at home. So don't allow those momentum goals and get ready for a run and gun style game.
A reminder, you can join us in the postcast after each and every Senators game, including tonight when they host the Columbus Blue Jackets. If you're going to the game, throw us on the radio on the way home. Just use your phone, hit the Apple or the CarPlay, and away you go on our YouTube channel. And again, please subscribe. It helps out a lot. One last note before we go, and not that this is surprising, but the Hobie Baker top 10 finalists have been announced, and Jake Sanderson is not among them. And with the amount of time that he missed between injury and Olympics and illness, even the games that I went and World Juniors, it makes complete sense. So just for completeness sake, because we called him Hobie Sanderson at the start of the year, I think the fact that he was listed as an all-second team on the NCHC team, despite missing all those games, tells you enough about what his teammates think about him. But the finalists are Matty Beniers, Bobby Brink, Luke Hughes, Devon Levy, former Carleton Place Canadian, Dryden McKay, Ben Myers, Yaniv Peretz, Quinnipiac, Nathan Smith, and Bobby Trevino. Oh, I forgot Brian Hallinan as well. Anyways, those are the top 10. No Sens prospects. Makes sense. You don't really expect there to be when you miss 25% of the year due to various reasons. All right, Pillsy, any final words before we go?
Go Sens, go.
Go Sens, go. We'll see you in the postcast. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.